Hey everyone! So, if you've got a political science exam on the horizon, you are in exactly the right place. We're about to do a deep dive into David A. Lake's work on the state's role in world politics. Think of this as your ultimate study guide. We're going to break down the core arguments, the critiques, and what's next for the theory. All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to build the case for why the state is just so central to international relations. Then, like any good analysis, we'll challenge that very idea with some really powerful critiques. After that, we'll peek into the future to see how the theory is evolving, and we'll wrap it all up by looking at why the state, even with all these challenges, is still a huge deal. Let's jump in. Okay, first things first. At its very core, the academic discipline of international relations, or IR, is pretty much obsessed with one thing: what states do on the world stage. It's the fundamental starting point for almost everything.
It doesn't matter which theory you're looking at: neorealism, neoliberal institutionalism, even constructivism. The state is almost always the main character in the story. And it makes sense, right? States are the ones declaring war, they're the ones setting up trade deals, and they're the ones signing or not signing major environmental agreements. They have the authority to make these massive binding decisions.
So, why this intense focus on the state? It's not because theorists are naive and think other actors don't exist. Of course they do. Instead, focusing on the state is what David Lake calls a methodological bet. It's a strategic choice to simplify a massively complex world in order to build theories that are powerful and, actually explain things. And this quote right here from Kenneth Waltz, of all people, the founder of neorealism, really drives the point home. Even the most hardcore state-centric theorists know that non-state actors matter. The argument isn't that states are the only actors, but that they are the most important actors. By focusing on them, you can create theories that are parsimonious, that's a key word for your exam, meaning they're elegant and simple, without getting lost in a million different details. Okay, so this is a super important slide. These are the 4 core reasons for the state-centric approach. Number 1, parsimony, which we just talked about, keeping theories elegant. Number 2, the idea of a single national interest, like a state's goal is survival or gaining power. 3, the fact that the state is an authoritative actor whose decisions are binding. And finally, number 4, that systemic processes, the way the international system itself works, shape how states behave. Now that third reason, the state as an authoritative actor, is all based on this massive concept you absolutely need to know: Westphalian sovereignty. Basically, it means that within its own borders, the state is the boss. There's no higher authority. So when a government signs a treaty, that decision binds everyone in the country. That unique power is what makes the state such a critical player. And that brings us to the 4th reason. You can't understand why a state does what it does just by looking at its domestic politics. The international system itself creates its own set of pressures. Things like anarchy, the lack of a world government, or competition between states force them to act in certain ways regardless of who's in charge at home. In that sense, the whole system is really greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, so we've built the case for state-centrism. Now let's do what any good analyst does and try to poke some holes in it. This is absolutely key for any exam answer. You have to show both sides of the coin. And the first big critique hits right at the heart of the theory. This idea of a single, unified national interest, does that really exist? Or is it just a convenient fiction that papers over all the conflict happening inside a country? So on one hand, the state-centric view says, yes, there's a collective interest. But the domestic politics critique says, hold on a second. Most international policies, whether on trade or climate change, are redistributive. That means they create winners and losers inside the country. So from this point of view, there is no single national interest, just a bunch of competing domestic interests fighting it out. So how does the field deal with this really solid critique? Well, often through a clever little division of labor called the cooperation two-step. You'll have one scholar who dives into domestic politics to figure out what a country wants. Then, a different scholar takes that preference as a given and uses state-centric models to analyze the strategic game between states. It shows that even with the critique, the model is still super useful. All right, the second major critique is about the rise of other powerful players. Think multinational corporations, NGOs, terrorist groups. A state's ability to control them really boils down to this distinction. External sovereignty is about being recognized as a legit state by other countries. It's the public face. But internal sovereignty is about a state's actual power over its own territory. A country might have external sovereignty, but have very little internal power to, say, tax a giant corporation operating on its soil.
So, given these critiques, where is the theory headed? Let's look at the cutting edge, the future research frontiers where scholars are adapting these old ideas for a much more complicated world.
The source highlights 3 really key areas of research that are pushing the theory forward. This is where all the exciting new stuff is happening in the field right now.
These 3 frontiers are state structure, unit heterogeneity, and international hierarchy. Now, I know this sounds a little academic, but each one directly challenges a core assumption of the old-school theories, that states are all the same, and that the international system is just pure anarchy. Let's quickly break each one down.
First up, state structure. This is all about getting past simple labels like weak state or strong state and actually looking inside the black box. It's about how a country's internal institutions, like is it a federal system or a centralized one, affect how it deals with global pressures. They can respond in completely different ways.
Second, unit heterogeneity. This is a fancy way of saying, hey, not all states are alike. It directly attacks that classic billiard ball model of IR, where all states are treated like identical units. The real world is way messier, with empires, failed states, and all sorts of political entities. A good theory needs to be able to explain that diversity.
And third, international hierarchy. This one's a really big deal because it challenges that foundational IR concept of anarchy. Sure, there's no world government, but that doesn't mean all relationships between states are equal. Far from it. You have hierarchies everywhere. Empires, spheres of influence, you name it. Anarchy might be the general condition, but hierarchy often describes the specific reality.
Okay, let's bring it all home. We've looked at the core theory, we've explored the critiques, and we've seen where things are headed. So after all that, we come full circle to the big question. Does the state still matter?
And this quote from David Lake really says it all. Despite all the valid critiques, despite the need for the theory to evolve, the state is still indispensable. You just can't analyze world politics without it. That methodological bet we talked about at the beginning, well, it's still a pretty good one. So I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on for your exam and beyond. When we're facing huge global challenges like climate change or pandemics, is the sovereign state the problem? Is it the solution? Or is the very idea of what a state is changing right before our very eyes? That's the question that will shape international relations for years to come. I hope this was helpful, and good luck with your studies.